we're here to talk about the men's national team. And I think if you look at their year, you can kind of break it down into two sections. I think arguably we're going to break this down into three sections. We have that Copa America section, which is just qualifying, the friendlies before, and then the tournament itself, which I think for a lot of Canadian fans was one of the highlights of the year. You have those friendlies in the middle where you had games against the U.S., Mexico, and Panama, the top four teams in the region all playing each other. And then you had Nations League, where you had a comfortable 1-2 kind of games going through. Just as an overall, before we try to break down specific moments here, are there any just moments that you find stood out for you as were defining moments for the year for the men's national team? What are the moments that stood out for you?
I think maybe my favorite moment might have been right at the start of that Jesse Marsch era, the friendly against France, because we played the Netherlands and you're kind of like, okay, there was stuff to take from that game. Then you move the friendly against France and a draw where we arguably could have won. And with some of the performances from that game, it was like so many Canadians just their values just shot up. They went in the shop window for so many Liga sides with the scouts there. And it was just a moment where you could say, okay, Jesse Marsch actually has something that we can see happening here, a new system, a new formation. And just you could just see there was some sort of new era coming. I never would have thought it would be what it's became to be, but you could just see that there was something stemming from that game.
No, I think that's a fair way to say it. I don't think we expected what we got maybe so quickly. I think it was perfect. It was a good matchup and a good marriage of coach and roster and body and just depth chart for Canada. I think Marsch fits the current core of the Canadian team very well, especially in transitioning into this new era, this 2026 run of the team. But I think I agree with you there. I think the beginning months. I think there were times on X/Twitter. I don't care. I'm calling it Twitter still. On Twitter, where basically those first two friendlies, it just felt like it was as we call the. I see. This is what I remember. I remember tweeting specifically saying, "Okay, we've got the moral victory games, right?" It's like, okay, we held the Netherlands scoreless in one game for a half, so moral victory there. We held France scoreless for a whole game. Moral victories times two. This is good. This is wonderful. And then even that first game at the Copa America, where the first half against Argentina is tightly hit, and there's opportunities, and it just felt like, yes, there were times where it felt unnervy. It was just like, okay, we're giving Messi all the breakaways this game. Okay, do we have to do this? I don't want to do this, but I guess this is what we're doing. But like there were moments in those where you're saying, okay, you played toe-to-toe with a side, though you ultimately lost, you show that you belonged at a level. And I think going from those moral victories to actual results really did bring it up. I guess we'll start a little bit with Marsch here. I think he has found himself as the best coach for this team currently. I think also just on an overall standpoint, he has, if there was a PR booklet in terms of how to connect with the Canadian soccer fans on all levels, I think from a PR standpoint, they have knocked it out of the park. They are batting 1,000. How have you looked at Marsch's time as a coach and almost now an ambassador, taking over that role as the face of Canada soccer away from another player, another coach who I know now we look at him differently, but that's what Herman was to a degree. But Marsch has kind of taken those shoes and run with it into a higher and I think a better degree for the landscape that we have currently.
Yeah, I think when you look back at Marsch getting hired, I know there's, of course, the mixed feelings of him being American, and some people weren't too happy about that. But really, how many Canadian outlets can we really go managerial-wise? There's Tommy Wheeldon, and then there's Bobby Smirniotis, and I really didn't think they're ready for that job. And then outside of Jesse Marsch, there was a couple other shouts. Yes, there was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and a couple other managers. And we were even looking at Jose Mourinho, and I know that was a fairy tale dream. But I think when you really think back to then, I really thought Jesse Marsch was the right man for the job. I thought he was a perfect fit. He had the time at CF Montreal. He had North American experience. And you could just see the way his style was going to line up with who we had. We had, of course, and still have, of course, a very quick, agile, fast-paced, front-footed team. And the Red Bull system, what Jesse Marsch likes to implement, it just really seemed like it would go hand in hand. So I think when you look at what Jesse Marsh is always going to bring us, his style of play, who we have player wise, I thought it just made sense. And the way he's just connected with the fans, the fan base, like PR wise, like you said, it couldn't have been a better move, especially when he's going out to CPL games and trying to just raise the overall level of the Canadian landscape. He's done a tremendous job, especially bringing Kawasi Poku, which I know some people might have said you could bring in Promise David instead. But bringing in a CPL player when you're playing in Ontario, that's where he was playing. It just everything he's doing, I think he's just checking off boxes, and I don't think we could really see a single red flag of what he's done so far. Like if you go back and look at all the windows, yes, you could maybe say, like I said, Promise David, but really, I don't think he's had a red flag really, whether it's tactical wise, whether it's substitutions, management on the field. I haven't seen a single slip up from him so far, which is crazy for what 3 windows I think it's been now, like you said, of him choosing selections, matches. So I think he's really smashed out of the park, and Kevin Blue's just continuing to do incredible work with his hiring and what he's done with the organization so far.
No, yeah, I think Kevin Blue has been doing a good job as well. Another person you can't really have that conversation without. I think he has done a good job of at least being more transparent, especially with the soccer community. I mean, some people always want more. I mean, I'll take everything, please. Just pull off the veil. Show me the workings. Show me how HR works. Like I'm that type of a person. But I think between Blue and between Marsh, they've done a good job of at least being more transparent. I know people will say they want more. People can be critical of some things, maybe being more of service, but their transparency has been welcomed, I think, for me. And it really has helped going from the new regime, going from the old regime to this current regime, navigating everything they've had to deal with on the women's side and such. And then for them connecting with it, I think it's done wonders having those two there. But again, we could talk off the pitch. I think Marsh is doing a good enough job